Okay.
All right, so we're going to talk about merging duplicates on Family Search. Now, in the chat, and if you're watching the replay in the comment section, do you use Family Search? And so yes, go ahead and say yes. If you haven't used Family Search, say no or not yet, whichever is your category. And we're going to dive into a little bit of background instruction that you need to understand to why there are duplicates floating around on Family Search. And then we're going to have a special announcement, and then we're going to get into the training. So be sure to check the description box later if you're trying to jump forward when you want to watch this on a replay. So yes, good. Yes, always, yes, a little but not often. I want to get started. Fantastic, Patricia. I really am glad that you want to get started using Family Search. Starting to use Family Search thanks to our videos. I have, but not in a bit though. Awesome. Okay. So many of you are Family Search users, which is good. For those of you who may not be, it's okay. No worries. Let's give you a little bit of training to make sure that you understand why there's this problem of duplicates on Family Search and what to do about it. So I'm going to make so I can see this here. All right. So the first thing that you're going to notice when you start using Family Search is there are multiple versions of your ancestors floating around on the family tree. And there's lots of people who want to, for lack of a better word, shove more duplicates of your ancestors into the Family Search family tree. The problem is, okay, we want to avoid doing duplicates, okay? Let's talk about what happens on other platforms. On any of these other platforms, Ancestry, MyHeritage, Find My Past, Jenny, WikiTree, not WikiTree, sorry, take that one back. Not Jenny?
I thought Jenny was a one.
Oh, I thought Jenny was your own. Correct me, Greg. Greg probably knows if Jenny is. I know WikiTree is collaborative like Family Search, but on all these other platforms, you have your tree, like that big tree in the middle, and then other people have their trees, and they're not connected. They may overlap, they're not connected. And you can have as many trees as you want on those platforms as well. But on Family Search, they have the goal of creating one profile for each person who ever lived. Just one profile. So we're all working on that one profile, okay? So in 2012, Family Search decided to head down this path, which was radically different than we've done before. How many of you used to transfer your GEDCOMs between people prior to 2012, or maybe even now? Did you do that?
It's been a while since I transferred a GEDCOM between things.
Exactly. But it was laborious. It was complicated. If your file got too big, it became very difficult to send through emails. You have to get hard drives or, and send it through the mail and hope it didn't break and all this other stuff. So I've had so many problems back in the day. But hey, it was better than making Xerox copies, or in the UK, do they call it Xerox copies?
I don't know. Our friends from the UK, do you call it a Xerox copy? Or
they're photocopies.
Photocopies?
Right? Anyway, so we called them Xerox copies, just like tissues or Kleenexes. Anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole. But in any case, it was so much better than having to copy all these papers, pass it to somebody, and they have to key it in. And anyway, so in 2012, things began to change. So what Family Search did is they went ahead and they took a lot of different databases and they shoved them into one. So they took the IGI files. How many of you have used IGI files? I know they're very popular in England and Scotland and Wales, and I know this.
Do you know what IGI stands for?
I will tell you in a second.
Okay.
But I wanted to say, I know that they're popular over there because I was reading a romance novel.
Oh, really?
That featured a somebody who got into genealogy, and they discovered the IGI files, and they were going all over Scotland based on information they found in those IGI files.
This is a romance novel.
It was a romance novel. I can't remember the title, don't ask me.
I'm guessing this romance novel was not set back in 1800s. It must have been in the 1900s.
Well, there's also a time travel element to it because she's being called from the past by these people Right? And so she also falls in love with somebody there. But in any case, so she goes over to Scotland, I think it was, and she's trying to find these people that she's finding connected to because they're calling to her from the past. And as she makes different discovery, the author takes you back to the story. They time travel. She's not that person, just the activities are happening.
I did not realize that there was a Venn diagram of, genealogists, romance novelists, and they've
time
actually
travelers.
combined them together. I understand that, yes, you may like romance novels and you may like genealogy. I didn't think that, this time travel novel actually fit in that Venn diagram.
Yeah. All right. So,
Okay, anyway, so the IGI, it's famous in romance novels.
and it's you go ahead, what's the acronym, Mr. Acronym?
The International Genealogical Index.
Right. And so that International Genealogy Index was created from two collections. Do you remember what they are? We have a video about it that's on our channel. Haha. I stumped him. So it's created two ways. One was users submitted trees prior to 1975.
Something like that.
Because then they transferred to a different format for submitting trees. So 1975 and earlier, anybody who was submitting their genealogical trees, they went into the IGI. So we don't know what they were based on. But the other part was extract information. So they would go around to churches and different collections, cemetery records. They'd create these little tree extractions. What's an extraction?
An extraction is where you're just taking that record and you're taking the names. And so you're actually just linking these names together in a big old database.
Right.
But you're not linking all the records together. You're just linking all the names of that. So, for instance, a birth would have the child and a mother and a father.
Uh-huh.
Well, the next birth, as you will see, it still has a child and it has a mother and a father. So now there's two instances of that mother and that father for that family. And I think one of our, Chris, yes, he says that he's had to merge 20 of the same person.
Uh-huh.
Someone made the lady and one of the kids, so I had to put the band back together.
Yeah,
sometimes
absolutely.
you can have lots of kids, and therefore there's lots of the same parent.
Yes, and we also want to go ahead and thank Maria for becoming a channel member. Thank you so much. We'll be highlighting people who join our channel. We really, really, really can't thank you enough. Anyway, so you got the IGI collection. You have members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So their church membership records were dumped into this pot. You have a separate collection of extracted vital records that were not included in the IGI. Then you have user submissions, people continually trying to add to the new family search, which not to be confused with the family search we have on That's New. Anyway, it's very confusing. And then
New family search is actually the old family search, but not the old family search.
not the old family search. Weird. Okay, so here's a trivia. How many of you went to a family history center and used Temple Connect? Yeah, that's Temple Connect. I think it was called Temple Connect. But anyway, you'd put these different CDs in and try to see the trees, and it was very, very, very time consuming. In any case, there's also a collection. They did another round of pedigree submissions that were cut off in 2007, and that's created new family search. And they threw it all in a pot and said, okay, now you have family search. And the idea is there's only be two ways new information comes into our one family tree. It's going to be when new records are created by people who join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They get married, they baptize their children, they pass away. Those records. And then anybody putting new information into the tree, like you can when you log in with a free account and start putting your stuff in the tree. That's the two ways you can get anything in there. But what's the problem?
Well, the problem is all of these other records have lots and lots of duplicates. So, for instance, the IGI files has some of the extracted records, but some of the user submissions were based on the IGI files, and so there's duplicates of those, and blah, 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 blah.
And so what you have is, let's say your ancestor is John Brown. Well, because he was in the LDS Church membership record, the extracted program, the IGI program, user submitted pre-1975, pre-2007, and then people keep putting him in the tree.
John Brown is popular.
But even though John Brown is a common name, there are multiple versions of John Brown floating around in the family search family tree. And so that's why you're going to have a lot of these little twigs on the family search family tree, and that's when you have to learn how to do duplicates. And so Andy's actually going to show you some examples of how to mess with all those duplicates, but we have to duplicate. So I'm going to let you drive now.
You're going to let me drive, all right. So.
I am, and I'm going to watch comments. Oh, hey, Bettina, you're a first timer and she just joined. Thank you so much.
Okay, so what y'all should be seeing on the screen right now is a big old list from one of the parishes in England, from St. Keverne.
Yes.
And this is actually the index that the people of St. Keverne had created that you can find on the St. Keverne Parish website. Mm-hmm. Now, I've used this since about 2001, and I've used it for a lot of research for my ancestors from St. Keverne. But really what's nice about this is it allows you to see lots of things all at once. So we're going to go and we're going to try to find some duplicates, and I'll admit, I went and looked beforehand. But what I can do here is I can say, let me, just look for a specific name. Can you type in Nichols? Nicholl. There, that's good. And I'm going to choose Nichols here. And we're going to choose one of these fathers. And I'm going to choose Walter.
Hey, anybody have a Walter in your family tree?
Yeah, or a Walter Nichols, even better.
I know, right? From St. Keverne, England.
You get 1,000 points if you have a Walter Nichols in your family tree.
That's right.
All right. So here we have this list of kids who were born to a Walter Nichols. Now, this does not mean that they were all born to the same Walter Nichols. That's what, of course, genealogy research is all about. But one of the things I know is that these records from St. Keverne were part of the IGI.
Yes.
Which means they were dumped into the Family Search family tree. So let's go over to the Family Search family tree, and we're going to look for this Jane one right in the middle, Jane Nichols, who is the daughter of Walter and Jane. Great names, rather common, and bam, look at that, because I had that pulled up beforehand. It's right there for me.
Chris has a Walter Howard Center.
Ooh, sort of close, but not close enough. So here is Jane Nichols. Now, one of the things with merging and with duplicates is you got to find the duplicates first. And it's sort of picky. If you don't have information, or if you don't have enough information, it might not find that there's any duplicates.
Right.
So for instance, right here, it's initially telling me, hey, this standardized christening place, it needs to be changed. So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to fix this here real quick from,
maybe,
hopefully.
So just put a space after
I'm
Keverne.
just put a space right
And
there,
there you go.
and there I can do
That
St.
one.
Keverne, Cornwall, England, and then just put standardized for the reason.
Your comment thing. I probably butchered that. Oops.
All right. So
No surprise.
then I got that. So now it's standardized. There's no red things there. It's giving a hint of a possible parish record, which is like, okay, yeah. But what I wanted to see here is I wanted to see, well, is this Walter from Churchtown, who happens to be a Mason, this other Walter, who was the father of Edwin, who was also the father of Henry, who was also the father of James. Is that more the case? Now, there's some other records that we could use for this, and I'm going to first start and go and look for these marriages. Let's see if I can find a Walter and a Jane when they were married. So I go over to the marriage records here, and I'm going to look for, Nichols. Okay. And then I'm going to see, hey, there's a Walter right here. And who is that Walter married to? In 1816, look at that, married to a Jane Tonkin. Now, I haven't gone, this is just the index. I can actually go into Family Search and I can pull up these records, but we're not going to do that today. But one of the things that we can start to see is that they were married in 1816, and you'll notice, hey, James, the son of Walter and Jane, was born at the end of that year. When were they married? They were married at the beginning of that year.
No judgment, but
So all of that first child here actually could have been James. So let's go and let's take a look at another set of records, the census records. Now, unfortunately, the census records don't start until 1841. Mm-hmm. But we are here in St. Keverne, and we're going to look for Nichols.
now some of you are going to find your collections on Family Search and find duplicates that way. We're just kind of giving you an idea of, we know this information to be true, and then we're going to show you that it needs to be merged.
All right.
Shotgun wedding. Nope, no shotgun wedding there. Cosmic Sight. But they do happen.
So there is only one Walter in all of these. And right here is Walter and his family. It looks like Walter is married to a Mary. He's 50 and she's 35. He's a Mason. That lines up with what was in the baptismal records, although the Mary is not. But if we go back to this marriage record, let's look something here. There's this other Walter. It's a Walter who was a widower. Dun, dun, dun.
Maybe not. There you go.
Married to a Mary James Giles. So, and this was in 1835, so right before, 5-6 years before the first census. So it's starting to look like this Walter has 2 wives. And if we go back over the baptism records, we can see, oh, look, there's a Mary James, and there's a Mary James that's happening after 1835. And then there's a Mary, and now this is of Port Husuc. And we can see that, okay, he was an innkeeper, a publican, and a mason.
Anybody know what a publican is?
Actually, no, the publican was, that might have been the, I'm sorry, that publican was a different Walter. See, that's the one that's Walter married to a Jenny.
How do you get this list on Family Search? Okay, so this particular list is not on Family Search, which is why I made the comment. When you're doing on research, then on Family Search, wherever you are, you're going to find situations where you know you have duplicates. He's just kind of giving you some backgrounds. But if you are researching in St. Keverne, England, he downloaded it from the St. Keverne, England Parish Church website.
Yes.
There we go.
Exactly.
I probably didn't need to say parish church. That probably means the same thing. But anyway, they have a website, and he downloaded this a long time ago. So we're just trying to set this stage that there will be duplicates in there. But thanks for asking.
Yeah. So with this, we can also see here that we have a Walter and a Mary, and there is a Henry and an Edwin, which are 20 and 15.
Okay.
Well, if we go back here, we can see, there is a Henry and an Edwin that in 1841 would be 20 and 15.
Perfect.
So this family is lining up where Henry and Edwin are the daughters of Jane, who is deceased because Walter was a widower, and he married a Mary James, who had a, what was that other child that's there? Mary, that's only a year old, and it looks like that there were possibly some other children that may have passed on before then already. So let's now go back over to Family Search. Now with Jane,
so our lovely cut-ups, our characters, are having fun with publicans. So now, wait. Who said publican? Well, I think it was Patricia. We have lots of things popping up, but she said publican is someone who runs a pub. And then our character said, so does a Republican run a repub?
So this innkeeper, the publican is all the same. Oh, that's interesting.
So,
cool.
So an innkeeper, perfect.
So back to our person here. Now, when thinking about from the IGI is taking Jane, and it already links Jane to a Walter and a Jane as her mother. But that's just one Jane Nichols. However, this Walter Nichols, there's going to be lots of them. Now, there's not a whole lot of information, but when we go here to the Walter Nichols, we can already see it's telling us, hey, there's these possible duplicates. So let's take a look at some of these and see if they are the father of Edwin.
Let's go back for just a second. For just a minute. I wanted to point out a couple of places where you're going to see possible duplicates.
Okay.
So you could see these possible duplicates pop up in your research help location. Another time that you might find a possible duplicate is down here in this little section as well. And then sometimes you're going to run into possible duplicates. Let's say you wanted to attach that Jane Nichols. Go back one screen just for a second. Let's say you were going up to the top. If you started adding Jane Nichols to your tree, And Family Search might find a possible duplicate in there and say, hey, you've got a possible duplicate for Jane or her father or her mother. So there's going to be lots of places where these duplicates will pop up that you're going to have to evaluate. So go forward to doing it this way.
All right. So we're going to review this merge of William Nichols and see if these two are the same. Now we start with the information that we have. This is the possible duplicate here. This is the one that we have that we want to keep. And you'll notice that there is a Jane. That's all that the IGA would have because that's all that this record, where's my baptisms? This record for Edwin has, Walter and Jane Nichols.
Right. And the IGI often, things are starting to change on Family Search. Some of the IGIs are starting to be linked to the original record the information came from, which is very cool. Some of them, remember, they come from people's trees and you will never be able to know. So you're going to just see what we call an index, extracted information, who married who, when, whatever, or who was born to whom, when. And so that's about all the information you're going to see. So that's why it keeps kind of going back, because there's a collection that the IGI is based on.
Yep. And that's actually, you can see right here is, hey, this is the one source for this. It is actually from this other index, which is not the same index, but it's basically from the same records.
Now, can we see the image before we go through?
We can. If you click down, we can actually go and we can see the image. Now, this is just a extracted index, so it's not going to be the image of the actual record.
Right.
But we're going to say that these are a match based on the research I've done in the past. And so now it comes to the next screen and says, hey, what do we want to replace? Well, I don't need to replace anything with William Nichols because all this information is the same. We have the family, spouse, and children. And so now it's taken the family and spouse from the other one, and you can see it's moved them over here. If we need to undo that, we can undo that. But we don't want to undo that. So I'm going to continue. And then I'm going to type a reason. I'm going to just, in this case, I'm going to put in a duplicate from the IGI extraction. And that's horrible spelling, but we will...
That's why I have Grammarly. And an ad for Grammarly.
So we're going to finish it, and we're going to go back now, and we're going to look at our William Nichols. So here we have our William Nichols, and now for family members, we have Walter. Walter married to Jane, and there's Edwin. Oh, but look, there's Walter married to Jane, and a Jane. So we need to merge somebody else. We need to merge Jane. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on the ID for one of the Janes, and I'm going to copy that ID, and then I'm going to go up to the other Jane here. So I'm going to show you another way that we can merge. So I've got that ID for Jane copied, that I know these are the same Jane because there's hardly any information. It's possible that there was two Janes.
Now, how would we have known it if we didn't have the website there? That's when you need to go and look at the extracted information that is that's associated with the sources. So
I'm going to go down here now to the possible duplicates. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not the possible duplicates. I'm going to go down to the merge by ID, which is just below the possible duplicates. Merge by ID. And now, can you paste that? Control V.
I can. Now, sometimes you'll find a duplicate that Family Search can't find because the information is too different between the two records, but that's the same person. I often find this when I'm researching a child and then I get to the parents and they have two sets of parents, but the parents really are the same. There's just a couple flaws, and so I need to merge the profiles, but Family Search can't find it, put it in the possible duplicate suggestion. So that's when you're going to use that copy ID and paste it here and continue.
All right. So we can continue, and it's going to come back to the same merge screen. So we can see, hey, here's Jane. She's married to a Walter. One of these Janes has a Jane. The other has an Edwin. We know these are the same. So we want to continue.
And notice how it's going to bring over the sources. So you never have to keep track of your sources. You're not going to lose your sources. They're just going to keep coming with you.
So what we can see here is happening now is because those two Walters we've already merged, they're one person. So now it's going to bring over Jane as another child of Walter and Jane. I'm going to click on continue, and you can do duplicate. Now,
if you were wondering what Grammarly is, it's a application that you can add to Chrome extension, and then it helps you with your bad grammar. It doesn't catch everything.
Extraction project.
So it's not part of Family Search. It's an extra thing that I pay for because I struggle.
All right, so let's go back to Walter now and see what Walter looks like. So we have Walter. Notice we haven't gotten a birth date or anything like that. We have Walter and Jane, and then we have Edwin there, and we have Jane there. So now they're part of the same family. What we've done is we've merged 2 Walters and we've merged 2 Janes. Okay?
Now, if you have any questions as we go along, be sure to put them in there. I saw a few people go ahead and put some questions. Remember, put a Q, a big Q, and then your question or the word question, and I'll be able to find it later.
All right. So what I want to do now, though, is we know what Jane's last name is. So I want to go over here to these marriages. And remember, we have this Walter who married Jane Tonkin. So I want to find that person to merge with Jane so we can actually get that marriage date. And there's probably going to be another Walter. That'll be 3 Walters now. Another Jane, so that'll be 3 Janes now. And so you can see when Chris says something like, hey, I had to merge 20 people, it's really easy to start racking this up because when we go back here to the children, if all these children are of Walter, then that means there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 instances of Walter just as a father. There's a 9th instance of him as a husband, a 10th as a husband because he's married twice, and an 11th as a child himself. So there's very easily 11 instances of Walter in Family Search that we need to merge all together to actually form this family together. So let's go over here and we want to type in Walter Nichols. He's male, and I'm not going to worry about the birth, but I want to do a marriage. Can you put St. Kevin? Okay, and then the spouse is Jane Tonkin.
Because we know we're looking for a specific person.
So we're looking for this specific person now. So look at this. Here is a Walter Nichols married Jane Tonkin. Let's take a look at this person in a little bit more detail because it's going to be the marriage date and place that we're really trying to pull from this. So Walter Nichols, again, not much information, married to a Jane Tonkin, and there is 13th of January, 1816, 13th, 12th of January, depending on when the record is, when the bounds are made. We're going to go with the 13th is perfectly fine. So what we want to do now is we want to merge these 2 people. So I am going to copy Walter's ID. I'm going to go back over to my other Walter. I'm going to go to merge by ID. I'm going to paste that in there. And I'm going to continue on. And this looks good. There's Jane Tonkin. And we're going to have to merge Jane now. And this all looks good. And this is another duplicate from the extraction program. Just to reiterate, just from counting up the number of kids and knowing that he was a child and that he was married at least twice, there are at least 11 instances of this exact same Walter with varying amounts of information in the Family Search family tree. Okay, so now we have Jane Tonkin and we have Jane. So I'm going to copy.
So how are you going to choose which one to keep?
Oh, let's go here. So I copied the idea of Jane. Let's go over to Jane Tonkin. And let's go to merge by ID and paste that ID. And then let's talk about that. So now, which one do we want to keep is a good question.
Well, in this case, it's an easier decision to make. Because we're just piecing together families that are from the IGI and putting that stuff together. Or we're piecing together these little twigs that we found, and there's just not a lot of information that you're merging in. When it becomes a case where I had a version of, let's say, John Smith, and he had a version of John Smith, and maybe he had John Smith married to his wife, and I had John Smith as a son of his parents, well, then it becomes kind of challenging. My rule of thumb, this is just mine, is I tend to preserve the profile, the one that's going to be a surviving person, the one that had the most quality sources. So if I, unlike him, put in census records, land records, tax records, and all this yarn, and all he has is one little city directory. I love my city directories, but that's all he had. Then I would opt for making mine ones survive and his ones not. But I am also not so strict that mine, if I create it, mine should survive. That's kind of my rule of thumb. I don't know. You guys can tell me what your thoughts might be or ask other questions. Like, I don't know how to make a decision. Go ahead and put those kind of comments or questions in the chat.
All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to switch these two people. So by switching it, they're going to switch positions. So now this will be the surviving person, and it has all the quality sources. And this will be the leftover person that goes away. I'm going to continue on. Now I want to change some information because this one, remember, we have the full name. So I actually want to replace the name Jane with the name Jane Tonkin. If there was a death or a birth or any other information that you want to add there.
Click on the little arrows for a second. No, on Jane. Go up to Jane Tonkin.
What?
Not yet. Okay. I was wondering if they've allowed us to be able to change back just yet, like key it in, but no, that's not there.
All right. So I also want to make sure that I pull over the marriage information. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go in and key that in myself.
Yes.
So I want to pull that over, and I'm going to continue. And this is actually one of the things that I do a lot of for St. Keverne. And I've noticed now that there's some other people that are doing it as well. So pretty soon we will have all of St. Keverne normalized. We won't have, 11 Walter Nichols. We will have one Walter Nichols and all of his wives and children that belong with him. So let's go back and let's take a look at Walter. We see Walter Nichols now. Hey, he's got the marriage there. He's got Jane. He's got 2 kids from Jane.
And he also has 2 sources up there.
And we got the 2 sources. Now I can go through and we can see here the possible duplicates. There's 4 possible duplicates for Walter. Let's just try to pick out who those might be just by looking at this. Okay. So we have this first one here. Well, there's a Henry. Well, that's Henry. That's going to be a good one. Let's go back and see what the next one is. Normally, I'd actually just go through and do all this, but I'm just trying to show you. We have a James Nichols. Let's go back and see. There's our James Nichols. And we got another person here. Okay, there's that Jenny and the Emma Nichols. Now, we're not sure whether that Jenny and Emma is, but it might be because we found out from our friend Jean, right? That told us that a publican is basically like a barkeeper or an innkeeper. A lot of your inns and bars were the same back here in the early 1800s. And let's go to the other one. And Jane and Jenny, that's semi-close to the same thing.
But you still need to check it out.
You need to check it out and see if there's anything else.
Because he has Williams marrying Marys. And...
Yeah. So here's Walter's with John Nichols. And John is not on here. So there's actually a child that is not listed on here. I'm going to go over to the burial records really quick. And let's take a look at Nichols. Oh, just a second here. This is what's great about using these spreadsheets of all of these records together is I can quickly take a look and see many different things
now
while I'm doing research, so I know which record sets or which specific records to actually pull up later.
Right, and that I'll link to in just a little bit. That data miner, I pulled information from a census record in Pennsylvania in 1850, and so I could create a spreadsheet, and then I can,
There's an Edwin, there's a John, and then there's another John the next year. Now, neither one of the Johns show up here, but there's 6 years between when their 2 kids were christened as far as a possibility. So that fits right within the right timeline. And from an age standpoint, well, this John was 6 months old when he died. And he died in March of 1832. And we have John here in October of 1831. Looks like that John Main. And this is just spelled with one L. That's why I'm not seeing it over here. I bet you if I go and I type in N.I. Nickel, add those in. Oh, look at that. There's our John.
Yeah.
October 16th. So we have that John there, and we have the next John was only 2 months old. He might not have even been christened, and that might be why he's not showing up in the records. But then we also see, hey, Edwin here. Edwin died when he was 4, and that's actually the Edwin that we have on this family already. So what we've done here, we've just merged 3 Walters, and we've merged 3 Janes, and the end result is we have 4 people. So you're going to merge a whole lot more than you have people.
Right.
6 merges, and we end up with 4 people. And
Now,
we can already see where a lot of these other duplicates are going to fit in. Now remember, for each one of these kids, you're going to have to merge that Jane with that Walter, or the Mary with that Mary. You're not going to have to merge the Jane with the Walter. You're going to have to merge the Walter with the Walter.
Okay,
and the Jane
yes.
with the Jane Tonkin out.
That's right. But be careful because you don't want to merge. So if a man married 2 Janes, you don't want to merge those Janes together when he had 2 separate Janes. So merging is something you need to do cautiously, but don't be afraid of merging because you can always undo a merge if you make a mistake. So go to where we would undo a merge.
Undo a merge. All right, so we go back over here and we can go to the changes. And I'm going to click on show all the changes. And that's going to show me every change that has been made, including, dun dun dun, all these merges. Now, it tells me the deleted person. If I go to that deleted person, it's not going to let me do
Click
anything.
on the name.
Oh, the name? It doesn't have the merge there.
And then you can hit restore person.
You can always hit restore person, and that's going to undo that delete. That merge.
Yes, the only thing that makes it problematic is it doesn't bring the sources with it. So you're going to have to redo the sources. So it's kind of a pain in the neck. So be careful when you merge, but recognize that so when Family Search rolled out and asked people to start working collaboratively and told us about this merging problem, they said like a significant percent of the database was probably going to be a duplicate. I seem to remember like 70 or 80% was duplicate stuff in the Family Search family tree. And the family tree is huge. So don't be surprised that you're going to run into duplicates. Either it's going to come from the IGI, they're going to have 2 people working on a tree. So I had a situation where I had a Caroline Mock. And Caroline Mock had 2 husbands, Joseph Geisler and then Michael Bilbin. Well, there was another Caroline in the tree, but because of her marriage record, she married Michael Bilderman, her second husband, with her married name, Caroline Geisler. So the Billmans are searching for a Geisler, but because I'm descended from the first husband, I know that she had a second husband. I was able to take Caroline Mock and Caroline Geisler and merge them together, and now she's with her first and second husband, as well as her children from her first marriage and the children from her second marriage. And I was able to establish the records and tell people why I did it. So don't be afraid to merge. Merging is part of the Family Search family tree experience. But I want to see what kind of question.
So I wanted to show, you keep on going off before I can answer. You got to give me a chance. The reason here, visually you can see, is I've gone to one of these other Walter Nichols from that merge. Now if I go to the view the tree, this is the tree of Walter Nichols. And I'm just going to go and do the portrait. Here's Walter Nichols. Here's Jane. You notice there's no parents. There's no parents of either one of them. There's James. There's no kids. There's no spouse. There's no other children. This is all that there is of that tree. It is not actually connected to anything else.
So I call those twigs.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're taking these 11, and yeah, all of these 11 merges, which is probably going to be 11 plus him, plus another 6 or 7, plus another 4 or 5 with the wife. You're looking at 20 or 25 merges, and that's forming one family of about 10 people, is what it's looking like to me. And that still hasn't connected them to their mothers and fathers. But then what we can do is we can go to Walter and we can see where Walter is with his mother and father. We can go to each one of the kids and see where they are with their mother and father, and with Jane where she is. And now you're actually starting to build that tree together by merging all these little twigs together.
Yep. So Kathy had, how can you prevent duplicates when a living person dies? This is a great question.
Oh, yes. This is a great one.
How can you prevent duplicates when a living person dies and all the family members have an account with the person in their tree? We have 5 accounts in my family.
You can't.
You can't.
Now, here's the thing with this, is the other accounts are not going to be visible to everybody until that person is killed off in the family tree.
Now, if they are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and they are in your profile and they happen to be your mom or dad, the church automatically sends that death date there, and then they come out. And now they're public to everybody. If they are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or they are not your parents, like your grandparents, aunts and uncles, so on and so forth, you will have to manually key in the death information. That will make them viewable by the public. And yes, he has 3 brothers. When they eventually, I'll
use my grandpa as an example.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was headed.
My grandpa had 8 kids, and him and his wife had 35 grandkids, and then there's great grandkids now. Anyways, there's lots of family search accounts here. So when my grandfather died, it was probably a year and a half of, whenever people would sign in, oh yeah, that's right, grandpa died, and they'd go and change that death date. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's showing, oh, there's this duplicate, because it was one of my other family members. And so it was like a year and a half before we stopped getting duplicates, because every time somebody added that in, he's now visible, and it's clear that, oh, this is the same person. Right. We need to merge these people.
And I was working with, I was volunteering as a family history consultant with someone, and they were saying, why doesn't Family Search have my uncle deceased? He died 5 years ago. Well, she created that profile for a living person in her space, and living people that you add to the tree are yours. And that's how Family Search tries to protect our privacy around the world. And so she had to go in and type in the dates. Well, as soon as she did that, because she's like, I don't exactly remember, she just put in a little bit of information, made the tree reflect that he was deceased, and there was a duplicate for her to merge with her cousin. They merged, and the cousin had more information, and she was able to leave her cousin's version because the cousin had more information than she did. So, all right, next question. What do you do if someone fights a merge you made, but you know it's right?
All right, so the first thing that you should do is you should not just know that it is right, but you should document that it's right. Mm-hmm. So that includes putting sources on there, but it also includes in that, now these merges that we're doing were really easy because no one's going to object to them because they were just from the extraction program. If it's something that's more complicated and it's not clear why there was these two, then you're going to want to have a more detailed explanation of why these two people are the same people, particularly if there's something contentious or funky going on. So use the reason statements to do that. And then the last thing from that, so we have put your sources on, use your reason statements, and watch them. You can actually watch people and then be diligent in, remerging them if they need to be remerged.
Okay, so if
you're not on there,
I need to switch. All right, so let's say you're on a profile page. There's this little watch right here. And when it's a blacked out star, you're watching them. And when it's a clear star, you're not watching them. So watch them. The other thing is contact that person. There's a way to contact the person. Let's say you want to, you can't contact Family Search on this profile, but if there was someone's name here, you could click on that and you'd be able to send a message to them and say, hey, tell me a little bit more. And then James Tanner is another video that we have on this channel. And the video is called Family Search is Not the Problem. And his advice is be the last one standing.
Yeah.
At some point, be the last one standing.
So real follow-up from Kathy. Kathy says she's not a member of the church. So in your case, with your family members and all those profiles, whenever somebody dies, you all need to put in that death date, and then you all need to merge those people.
Right. Yeah. It is a hassle, but there's really no way to make to work that around because of the international privacy laws that make it next to impossible to us all have our little,
You can't have a one world tree and have your own private tree at the same time.
Right. So any living person. So, and that also brings me to a point. Any living person you put into the tree, make sure you're actually going to take care of that profile. I found that I had like 200 profiles of living people because I didn't attaching 1940 census records, and I created these living person profiles. Well, they're all in my tree, and I just go do things sometimes. I do random acts of volunteering genealogy, and so now I need to go like find out about them, see if they passed away or not, because some of them are still alive, but they're not like quite related to me. They're way back far removed, like 18th cousins.
18th great grandfathers.
Yeah, something like that.
Really
I'm just
far
kidding.
removed.
Anyway, 18th cousins and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Look into it. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Hope it gave you some feedback and tips and strategies on how to merge people on Family Search. If you have any other questions, put them in the comments. We'd be happy to tackle